question reflects on it, is that the whole psychedelic issue is being transformed by the fact that information is being spread around about how there are many, many plants which, not psychoactive by themselves, can be combined to produce essentially pseudo-ayahuascas of various sorts. So it's not necessary to go to the Peruvian Amazon. It's not necessary to even use Amazonian plants. There are perfectly good Native American plants that can be combined together to produce very spectacular experiences. And if you want to get into underground science at the cutting edge, making and testing these things on yourself and your friends is guaranteed to keep your life interesting. I'll just give one example and then you're sort of on your own. But there is a plant called Pergamon harmala, or Syrian rue, a woody plant that has become a problem out near Fallon, Nevada, and north of Elko on Highway 5, and out near Deming, New Mexico, and south of, eastern Arizona. Anyway, a range plant, something you encounter, it can go for miles along the highway. This is an extraordinarily potent source of harmaline. And harmaline, don't forget, is more hallucinogenic and less toxic than harmine. Harmine occurs in Banisteriopsis coptic, the source of ayahuasca. Harmaline, it is possible, we need to do more research, but it's possible that harmaline on its own is an interesting hallucinogen. Certainly, when you take Pergamon harmala and boil it together with the root bark scrapings of another North American plant, Desmanthus illinoisensis, the Illinois bundleweed, this plant has more DMT in it than any other plant ever measured. And it's very interesting that, as far as we can tell, it was not known by the North American Indians. I mean, this is controversial because why is it called bundleweed? Bundle, in that context, signifies medicine bundle, as in a shaman's mojo bag. So why is it called bundleweed if nobody ever knew that it got you high? Yeah?
Well, it's called bundleweed because of the appearance of the seed pods. It's also called spider bean, and the seed pods look like a little curled up spider or a bundle. I was wondering about that myself, but that's what I
there
found out.
you are. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It may prick your bubble. There's
another interesting thing about it is about these two crypto hallucinogens. It was used as a skin remedy, and Argyria nervosa was used as a skin remedy in India as well, Ayurvedic medicine, and it's also a crypto hallucinogen. It has lysergic acid amides in it. So
yes, Argyria nervosa, if you're an enthusiast of obscure hallucinogens, this is one to reckon with. Possibly, gram for gram, it is the most powerful plant hallucinogen on the planet because it only takes 5 or 6 small seeds. And interestingly enough, it's quite accessible. In other words, all you do is pound the seeds and eat it. And yet, though there are 13 species of Argyria, all containing psychoactive compounds, spread from Kerala in India down through Micronesia, there's no history of human usage in that entire cultural area. So there are mysteries about who knows these things. You know, when you go to the Amazon, most people have a kind of noble, savage prejudice, and they think that it has to be the naked people who are off-river, who are very wild and woolly, and then they make the good ayahuasca. Often this is not the case. Often it's the guy who lives on the edge of Iquitos or Pucallpa who tends his garden and is fairly conversant with the modern world. some of you may know Manuel F. Bruce Lamb's book, Rio Tigre and Beyond. He describes a situation there where a man who had in his youth been kidnapped by Indians and learned to make very good ayahuasca. Later, he encounters another tribe of Indians. He's on a rosewood collecting expedition to a remote part of the jungle. And he encounters these Indians and they invite him to take ayahuasca with them. And it's just garbage as far as this guy goes. So he says, I'll show you how they do it where I come from, and makes it for these people, and literally becomes a culture hero overnight, is hailed as the great reformer of their ritual, just simply because he showed them how to get really, really smashed.
So can you teach us how to do that? The second plant, the DMT supplier, how do you spell the name?
Oh, yes,
D-E-S-M-A-N-T-H-U-S. D-E-S-M-A-N.
T-H-U-S. And then Illinoisensis, simply the state of Illinois with ensis after it. Thus not putting myself to the test of spelling Illinois. And yeah, the DMT is in the desmanthus, and the predominant contains the MAO inhibiting harmaline.
It's in the seed of the desmanthus.
No, it's in the root bark scrapings. And the harmaline in predominant harmaline is spread throughout the plant and concentrated in the little black seeds. If you don't want to drive out to Elko, find an Iranian market here in LA and tell them that you want to buy Hurmal, H-U-R-M-A-L, and they will sell you the seeds of predominant harmaline. It's used in Iranian households as a fumigant and incense. You just throw some on a charcoal, on a bed of coals, and it makes this wonderful incense-like smoke, which is actually intoxicating. I mean, a wonderful thing to do if you want to do some exploratory chemistry is take half the dose of mushrooms, and then after a couple of hours, smoke some predominant harmaline in a bong or a pipe. And the MAO inhibiting characteristic of the harmaline will immediately lift the curtain for about 15 minutes on a very spectacular series of very cool hallucinations. In other words, they're hallucinations where you can just sit and look, thinking, my goodness, this is fascinating and compelling, rather than the other kind of hallucination where you're... We call this mushroom plus predominant harmaline combination vegetable television, because it's approximately that engaging, but very, very non-threatening and reassuring for beginners.
Repeat that one again.
That's a half dose of mushrooms. After an hour and a half, smoke a quarter of a teaspoon of predominant harmless seed.
Can the seeds be eaten instead?
Oh yeah, they're very small and hard and black, and you'll want to get a broad coffee grinder. A broad coffee grinder is a great tool for the would-be psychoactivist. It will flour nutmeg, reduce nutmeg to flour. Nutmeg's fascinating. I used to take it when I was in high school. I used to take it at night, and I would stay up late and study. It would sort of wire me, and then I would sleep. But when I would wake up in the morning, I would be absolutely smashed. And I didn't even know what it really was. It was almost before I smoked